better than two.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Sweet Home Catoosa. And today, I am honored to say I have got Pastor Joel Southerland here from Peavine Baptist Church. And it's a little self-indulgence because you're my pastor. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Richard. I'm honored to be on it, man. Glad you asked me.
Yeah, a lot of great things at Peavine. And I thought, you know what, it's just not been a better time to really get you to come on. I know a lot of folks in the community know who you are because you're their pastor as well. But for folks who don't know, they see a lot of the signs in the yards and driving down the road and all that. And I just thought it'd be a great way for folks to get to know you that maybe don't know you. And for the folks that do, they'll sit back and enjoy the ride because we always enjoy you every week and you're a blessing to the community. At least that's how I feel. And I know I'm not alone in that. So
Thank you, Richard.
yeah.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Peavine for a second because, you know, my wife and I, we kind of took the journey that most folks do. Probably about 5 years ago, we just didn't really feel like we had a church home that just fit us. And so we set out, like a lot of folks, and we started visiting churches in the area. And Peavine, from where I sit over here in Graysville, is not close,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's not, but we heard in the community, and we would hear, and my first exposure actually to Peavine was I went to the car show. So you hear about things. It's the things that you do that you don't really know, and you'll talk about that, the seeds that got planted. So I knew where Peavine was, and I knew the church and the crowds and all that. So we went around and we went different areas, and then we went to Peavine, and it just felt like home, right? And so we went once, and we thought, well, maybe it was just that magic in a bottle. So we'll come back and check again. And of course, 2 came 3, and 3 came 4 times, and the next thing you know, here we are. We're Peavine. So, but I know since we've been coming, Peavine has grown leaps and bounds in Peavine City that you talk about.
Yeah, that's right. I've been there, just celebrated 8 years, and as far as average attendance, we've tripled in size in 8 years. So when I came in 2017, January 2017, was when I officially started, about 800 in that time frame. And then now this past Sunday, we had, I don't know, 2569 or 2579, something like that, Sunday. And you've been there, you know what it's like. We're not equipped for 2,500 people. We're doing our best, and God's providing. So
No. But then in the same time, you've got Rossville, Dalton, and they weren't in the fold then, and so it's just incredible what's going on with Peavine, to grow Peavine.
Yeah, we've got the Rossville campus. When I first came to Peavine, I was the interim in 2016, and so they were without a pastor. I didn't intend on being the pastor, but I was filling in. God just kind of knit our hearts together, and separately, and so it all worked out. And I told them, I did a Q&A before they voted on me as their pastor, and I said, hey, if you vote on me, here's the direction we're going to go. Once we fill up, we're going to go launch some campuses in our area, and this 20-mile radius we now call Peavine City. And man, God just opened that door for the Rossville campus, and a lot of people in our church. Rossville's important to a lot of people in this area that grew up in that Rossville area. They remember the heyday of the Rossville area.
Yes.
They remember, if I'm correct, maybe the Rossville High School winning state football championships or being in the play hall. I mean, there's a lot of affection and affinity for the Rossville area. First Baptist Church Rossville, we got a call from our director of missions, Eddie Rushing, who's now on staff with us at the church. And he said, hey, I know you're probably not interested, but Rossville's shutting down. Would you want their building? And I was like, yeah. Don't talk to anybody else. I was headed on vacation. I said, let me get back, and for sure we're interested. And so God just worked out that whole plan for the Rossville campus. And then we knew we wanted to launch the Dalton campus. That was kind of God had laid on our heart to be that second area where we thought we could build. For us, success at a campus, we want to fill up one service, and then we want to fill up 2, then we want to fill up 3. We don't care about the number or the size or whatever, but I always like to reclaim. But I don't really want to go build a building or take a storefront. All those are great ideas, but I look back at these churches like First Baptist Rossville. For over 100 years, people have poured their ties and their sweat and the energy into that place. And the thoughts of that building just getting leveled and it being a a gas station. To me, I wanted to reclaim the investment people had made into that house of worship over decades and decades and decades of time. I have photos in my office of Rossville baptizing hundreds of people at one time. Wow. After a revival, 100 years ago or whatever. And so, I mean, we saw that building. It's old building. It's got issues. We're like, let's reclaim that. And in Dalton, we did the same thing. We found a church that it wasn't near that old, but people had been pouring into it for decades. And we're like, well, let's reclaim that for the glory of God and still have a gospel presence there. That those people who, when they started that church, 30 or 40 years ago, never intended for it to shut down, or not be able to make it. And I said, let's step in and reclaim that for the glory of God. And so that's really worked for both those campuses for us. It's been a tremendous blessing.
That's not normal nowadays for what you see and you hear. And that as generations have gone on, people attending church I can remember my grandparents, listen, the door was open, they were there.
Right.
And that was that generation. And then, it kind of settled down. And so my parents took me as well. But then all of a sudden, when I became an adult, I had other things going on and my church attendance dropped off.
Yeah.
And then I had kids and we would take the kids to church and expose them to church. But, as things went on and they're in their period of their life right now where they're not active as much as, and so, but all of a sudden in my life, as we got older, it became more important to us as I slowed down. And I don't think I'm alone in that, but a lot of folks sometimes don't make it back to be active members or, they just don't have a path or a place. And a lot of times that's where we were at. Have we kept going around and not found the right place?
Right. Right.
Where would we be? Right. And so it was a blessing for us to come and find Peavine for us because it felt like it fit. And obviously it fits for a lot of folks because goodness gracious, I mean, if you haven't been, please come. But, we go to the 9:30 service.
Yeah.
And so we're right in that middle between the 8 and the 11. And so we get out and it's just folks are waiting to come in and get those seats. And so it's just an amazing thing to see what the Lord has done with Peavine.
Well, and you go back and talk about your journey in that. We see in church life the stages of, there are these certain events that happen in people's lives that return them towards God or return them towards the gospel of Christ and that difficult age group, which is why we hired a young adult pastor to focus on that. Out of high school, going into college, young adult, just out of college, young adult. That's an easy time to drift away. And then we notice when people get married, they tend to start thinking about those things again. When they have kids, definitely, they start thinking. Then sometimes it's when they become empty nesters, they start thinking about it again and those kind of things. God has these, and then obviously when there are specific life circumstances, a tragedy or some, you start thinking about life, death, and eternity. And it's still ingrained in America to go to a spiritual house of worship. Now, you said something that was interesting. Back in the day, we talk about our grandparents and all that. I bet they went to church 9 out of 10 Sundays, if not 10 out of 10 most of the time. It's just rare to miss. But what we know about Peavine is because we keep the statistic, the average church member comes about 47% of the time. Now, and somebody listening might say, well, that's terrible for your church. I bet it's better than most.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's better than most.
Absolutely.
The study I've most recently seen nationally in America is the average church member comes 1.7 times a month. We explain it with percentage better. But again, things are happening. It's a fast-paced world. People vacation more than they used to vacation. Used to, I don't know, I had to be running a fever and nearly hospitalized, and they might take me to church anyway. Like there was no, yes. And it's a different culture, with that generation. And the median age of our church right now is 29 years old. So we're a younger church, lots of kids, and moms are not as apt to bring their kids out if there's any kind of sickness. They're just worried about their kids. And so we're not mad about that. It's just the reality of the world we live in right now. But there are those stages where people are like, now it's time for me to get back in church. And we see those and we're glad for it.
Yeah, because you have the people also that they'll go twice a year, right?
Yeah. Oh, we got plenty of those. Yeah,
Sure. You know, because come Easter and then Christmas Eve, Christmas service. I mean, so.
And we're thankful for it.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of people who were the, what do they call them? Creaster, Christmas and Easter, Christians. There are a lot of people that are that. And look, they have an attachment maybe to Peavine or whatever church they're at. And then when a life circumstance hits them, they will become like God will do a work in their heart and life, and it'll be different.
It will be
different.
Yeah. It just speaks to the fact that they may not come all the time, but they still feel that call to come because that's the way they were raised. That's the way they were brought up. And they're like, look, it's not right to be Christmas or Easter and not be at a place of worship and do that.
Right.
So, and then you have online, right? I mean, like we're doing right now. I mean, how many folks just sit at home now and they take service at home?
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Hey, can I tell you a God's story when it comes to our online service? So every year, I take our pastors and some of our directors on a staff planning week in November. One of the things I've always had them do is Outreach Magazine's a Christian magazine. It's a regular magazine, but once a year they put out the top 100 fastest growing churches in America. So what I did with our staff was I assigned all of them 10 of those churches to study. Just study online, watch things online, watch services, those kind of things. So if there were 10 of us going, we'd all have 10 churches to give a 30-minute to an hour report on. And we're looking for things like leadership, evangelism, communication, just anything, trends that we're trying to spot a little. I don't want to be bleeding edge, but I don't want to be left behind either.
Right.
I'd rather somebody else make my mistakes and I'll learn from those. Well, in 2018, we noticed online church was becoming more prevalent. And so we made a note. It's in our file from that year. Online church, we had no lighting. We did not have good cameras. From doing what you do here, it takes cameras and lighting to make that look good. And so I had said to our team, hey, we need to start getting quotes on that. We saw it in a lot of churches. Well, then 2019 rolled around. We're back doing the same study. And so we all saw the same thing again. Online church is kind of a big deal. And I said, hey, we're going to sit around and talk about this, and we're never going to do it. I said, let's get hard quotes. Let's get with our budget finance committee. Let's get some money allocated so we can actually start purchasing. We needed a major lighting. We had no lighting in our building other than just, basically the can lights that came on. I said, we need some really stage lighting to make online. What most people don't know, the lighting we have in our church is for online more than it is for in person. It's great in person, but it's necessary. It's a must for online. So that's November 2019. And you know what's around the corner in November 2019. And so, at the time, Denny Patrick, my worship pastor, he got me a quote. We got budget. I said, hey, just buy this. I mean, we're talking about well into six figures to be able to buy all this stuff. And I said, hey, let's just, they gave us permission. We cast the vision for them. And I said, hey, let's just pull the trigger and let's get that stuff in. I said, I don't think we're going to start online because I'll be honest. Can I admit? I didn't know if I wanted to do online or not. I was afraid it might hurt in-person attendance. And so I was like, hey, and at the time I was still traveling the nation as a church consultant for the North American Mission Board. So I was still all over America. I was seeing this. The jury was still out with a lot of pastors who were doing it. Like they didn't know if they were going to keep doing it or whatever. But my vision was we might give somebody a private link just to our church members only. So when they go on vacation or they're sick, they can watch, shut-ins can watch online, So again, we turned the corner in 2020 and the momentum started to build. 2 weeks before we got on 100 pastors got on a phone call with the governor, he asked us to close in-person services. 2 weeks before that, all the lighting was installed. 2 weeks before. Now, when it got installed, I said, we're not using it anytime soon, but man, I'm glad it's in. The Monday before the Saturday when we shut down, I said to our staff, here's to tell you what kind of prophet I am. I said, we are not shutting down. That's never going to happen here. We're not going to shut down. We're not going to close the doors or whatever. I can never see that happening. I said, but let's operate this week like we're totally online, just so we have everything ready to go in case this thing gets sideways on us. So that whole week, crunch time. They did the testing. Everything got tested. On Friday, I sent an email to the whole church and said, hey, you're hearing about a lot of churches shut down. We are not going to shut down. Saturday morning, I got on the phone call with the governor. Saturday afternoon, I sent an email that said, what I said yesterday, never mind. We're going to go online only.
Yeah.
But the miracle of that is we had everything set up where there were churches scrambling to take a phone and throw something up on Facebook.
Yeah.
We had everything set. As a matter of fact, fundamentally, we are doing online church today the way we were doing it in the spring of, was it March 2020? When it all shut down. We're doing it now. We've improved it. We've made it a lot better.
Sure.
We've upgraded a lot of stuff, but fundamentally it's the same. And for us, it was just a God moment for Peavine that 2018, we saw the trend. 2019, we pulled the trigger. The Budget and Finance Committee had to pay to give us the money to buy some more cameras, put in lighting and all that. And we were set up ready to go. Amazing miracle story. So now, you know, Richard, we don't stream on YouTube currently. I don't ever see us streaming on Facebook. The metrics are hard to read on Facebook sometimes. We want good metrics. So we stream through an online platform. And so we're able to count devices and device locations very specific. Now, we don't know addresses, but we do know location, cities, and sometimes areas within larger cities. And we've recently seen our online attendance has shot up by a couple of hundred in the last few weeks, where we typically averaged about 700 devices a Sunday. We're now up between we had 900 and something devices or the other Sundays, which we count about 2 people per device. We don't know, but we ran surveys. And so our online audience is growing. Here's what we know now. Online is the front door of our church. It used to be social media.
Right.
But online is taking over, and it's now. So when you said online, I get a little excited because what we see going on in that ministry, and right now we're even talking about doing some discipleship courses for online only. We have people that tithe and give. We have a senior adult lady who lives in Canada who's never been to Georgia, never been to our church, somehow stumbled on us, and she gives, and about every 2 weeks writes me or somebody on our staff a note. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But that's the world we live in now. Everybody can, it's like this. You can kind of digest it when you have time.
Yep.
Or, you know, all these things. You can watch a little bit. You have to go away. You can come back. But one thing that you can never take the place of, and my wife and I talk about this, and she loves hockey.
Yes.
In person. You can't watch it on TV and get that same feel, right? So we could catch Peavine if we couldn't be there, we're out of town, but there's nothing that'll ever replace being in that seat, in that room. No. You just can't replace that.
No, so we hear this from people, first-time guests. We survey first-time guests. I text every first-time guest that comes to our church, and we just try to lean in and build a relationship. But we hear this all the time. There's nothing, people say this, I felt the Holy Spirit when I pulled in the parking lot. And I know that doesn't make sense, but I'm telling you, it was different when I pulled in the parking lot. We want online to be an introduction to Peavine, and we want online to be a supplement when you can't get there. You're sick, you're vacationing. Because I tell you what happens now. People vacation and they were disconnected from the church for a week and they couldn't reconnect. There was no way to watch or keep up. Hey, most members we know watch church when they're on vacation. They tell me, hey, we were watching on vacation in our condo in Florida. There were 15 of us gathered in the living room watching. I don't even expect that, but I'm thrilled because you stay connected during that time.
That's right. Well, but when you're doing a sermon series, it's kind of like watching a mini series. If you watch the first 2 episodes and you miss the third, you feel like you kind of missed out, right? Yeah. So that's why it's important too. And that's why we love your sermon series, because when you get in a series, you want to finish the books, read every chapter. So
that's right.
It's great that you have that ability. Like, I'm going to be out of town. But man, I'm going to miss that. It's not like I can go back on DVR and record and come back, but you do have a way now.
That's right.
So that's just a blessing. So that kind of leads us into it. And I'm facing the same thing here. So same thing. And as with the county, we do the same thing. You can't wait till the need is actually there. You're kind of behind.
Right.
You had the foresight with online, and like with the building here, when I built this here, this was never designed for us. It was for me to have a few vehicles in here and have a place to store some tools. And you see what it morphed into, because we needed a place as a family to get together.
Right.
Well, that turned into this Christmas. We had 60 people crammed into this room,
wow.
and we have no bathroom down here, right? So here we go. We're going to do an expansion this year. And so by next Christmas, we'll have bathrooms and we'll seat about 30 more people. But Peavine's doing the same thing. And I thought it was amazing when you talk about coming in the parking lot, feeling the Spirit. With the new expansion that y'all rolled out, it is even more of an inviting feel. And it's amazing. How long and when did that vision kind of come forward? Because I can tell you, and for folks watching, I'll have this still up on the window of what this vision looks like, because we got to see it at church a few weeks ago. But it's amazing. For folks that go to Peavine, you already know. Folks that don't, I mean, you're looking to the future.
Yeah, it started years ago. But, when I first went there, we had the 8 o'clock service. It was 8:30 at the time. Now it's 8 or 11. Boy, that 11 o'clock service filled up in a hurry.
Right.
We have an overflow room that seats about 200, and we start filling up an overflow room. So here you have 700 seats in a worship service, and we count, and there's 740 people sitting in 700 seats, because you got 2 kids in one, you've got a family of 4 sitting in 3 seats, and those kind of things. So then you got an overflow. So we started a 9:30 service, and somebody have to help me, but I think it was around 2019 early when we started the 9:30 service. That thing sputtered along forever, running 125, whatever. Well, you fast forward till today, and pretty much every Sunday in January, there may be one that's an exception, we have been over 100% capacity at every 9:30 and every 11 o'clock service. Over 100%. And church growth experts say 80% full is 100% full. You'll never get beyond 80% full. Now, we're pushing that boundary, but I'm smart enough to know I can't push that boundary forever. And so 3 years ago, probably 4 years ago, I said to the church, we're going to have to do something. We know that day's coming. So we contracted a design firm that all they do is design churches. And we told them, hey, we won't modest, but we're going to expand our worship center about 300 seats, build a lot of common space so people aren't fighting to get in and out. There's some standing around common space. Everything we're building is an absolute necessity for us to build it. And we're excited about it. It's going to give us room. We're adding 300 more seats, totally redesigning the worship center, but it will give us really room, if you count kids and all, for 12 to 1,500 more people. And then we have some plans for stress relievers beyond that will allow us to bring more people into worship. Just one phase, one step at a time is what we're doing. But yeah, we're excited, because I think people are coming to Peavine because of what they get when they're there. I just had lunch with a couple, has not moved into this area from out of state. They just told us at lunch, my wife and I, that they've never been to a church where they quickly bonded and connected with people so quickly as what they did at Peavine. There's some great things going on with God and the Holy Spirit there in that. And then, our community outreach is always getting people connected to our church through these kind of exterior ways. They're not coming looking for a worship service, but when our church is so good about reaching out. And so we just felt we need to make the room. We own Peavine City. That's a 20-mile radius of our church.
Yes.
It's a made-up city. I'm the made-up mayor of Peavine City, but it's 20, and we feel like that's our God-given ministry area. 500,000 people live in that 20-mile radius, and there are other churches who are doing a good job too. We just want to do the best job we can in that area too. So yeah, we want to make room, and it won't be the last thing we do, Lord willing. We'll just continue to do that.
Oh no. Yeah. The churches continue to, we watch through the years, just continue to grow and grow and grow. Well, if you look at it, you look and you could see the growth of the church itself in the buildings and how it's had to grow through the years to keep up.
Sure. Hey, the amazing thing is there have been people the church was founded in 1836. So there have been people who made sacrifices all along that way. You said it, from building. all churches that grow wind up pieced together.
Yes.
And at Peavine, you see the pieced together pieces.
You did.
But every bit of that was a generation that made the sacrifice to grow to reach more people down the line. 100 years before me, they were making those sacrifices. And we want to continue that legacy. It's at a different level, but we're just continuing the legacy that was handed to us by a previous generations.
One of the things we talk about how folks learned about Peavine, but one of the things that happened this Christmas. I had so many people who they knew we attend Peavine. They would pull me aside and say, "Tell me about what Peavine did for all these folks in the community with their health and medical bills." Yeah. And I remember because, as members, you were building us up, right? I've got something. Listen, we need to collect. We need to get this done. Can't tell you right now what it is. And we're all on the edge of our seats, right? And you're like, oh, when we get there. So when we finally came to that service and you told us all, we're like, holy smokes. But then went to find out all the people it touched and the letters that you got back and the families that actually had that impact in their lives. So talk to us about how that came about, because I've never heard that go on anywhere. Yeah. What a phenomenal idea.
Neither have I. Look, I can take no credit for this. I didn't believe it. So I'm in Indianapolis, the state of Indianapolis Baptist Convention had invited me up to train pastors in Indiana. So I took Daniel Curry, our executive pastor, and we were in hotels. I was training pastors, and a church member sent me a text about this happening somewhere else. I don't even remember the details. And I'll be honest, didn't really give me any context with it or anything. I was just I kind of thought it sounded like a scam.
Right. I mean, to most folks, it was like, is that really real? Yeah. And I got that.
And I get suggestions all the time, but I was just intrigued enough to where I sent it to Daniel and I said, hey, I'm teaching all day today. Don't waste a lot of time on it. Just dig into that a little bit. So we're in the airport going to fly back. And he's like, hey, I think that's legit. And I'm like, well, tell me what's legit. Educate me a little bit. And he kind of told me what's happening. And he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, hey, you grab another pastor. Y'all just interview that company and find out if this is real. Like I'm thinking it's a scam, but you find out if it's real somewhere along the way. They did a couple of interviews with them. They come back to me and they tell me, and I said, well, I still have these questions. They'd go back. It was a back and forth process, but we figured out, hey, this is real. Like this is a not-for-profit that does this regularly. Why would we not do this? And you've been there. We do big Christmas projects every year.
Absolutely.
I ask for money every year. I normally tell you what we're doing. Well, with this, I couldn't say that because I didn't know whose medical debt we were paying off and whose medical debt we were not paying off. So I didn't want somebody to quit making their medical payments, thinking Peavine was going to pay off their debt with maybe their debt didn't qualify, because we had no control over what debt gets lumped into that group. That's all determined by what they can purchase. And so, when I got into Peavine, I was using some leadership capital change in my pocket. Like I knew Peavine trusts me, but I'm pushing it right here by saying I need X amount of dollars for 2 Christmas projects. I can tell you what one is, can't tell you what the other one is. But Peavine responded with about double what I asked for, in one offering. And so, sure enough, we thought it was going to be $6 million in medical debt for about $30,000, because it's like the stock market. It changes every day, the fluctuation of the debt they're able to purchase. And because we have campuses, at Rossville, Walker, some of our church members come from Catoosa, and then Dalton. We said, let's just buy, what would the debt cost us from all 3 of those counties? And it basically cost us $25,000 to pay off $5.7 million worth of debt for 4,280 people. And that'll bring a tear to your eye if you sit down and think about it.
It did.
Now, I'll be honest. I didn't anticipate the community being as excited as what the community was. I knew our church. I was doing it for our church.
Sure.
I didn't anticipate doing television interviews, with it real life. It got big in a hurry on there. And I realized, and really, if you go back and look at some of the television posts, what they posted about us was probably the most viral thing they've ever posted on Facebook, one of our local TV. but it was unchurched people who were like, I can't believe a church is doing this. That really means a lot. But I'm hearing stories all the time. I just had one last night. Last night, somebody came to me and told me, hey, I've been inviting this guy at work. He said, I bet he doesn't even remember me invited him because he ignored me that hard. Like, I've invited. Paid me no attention, whatever. We paid off his medical debt.
Wow.
And he said he came to me and he's like, you go to Peavine? He's like, yeah, that church I've been inviting to over and over and over again.
Yeah.
He said he got teary-eyed, big, tough man, got teary-eyed. He's like, y'all paid off our family's medical debt. And so he told me last night, he thinks you're coming in the next couple of weeks. He said, nothing could have made them pay attention to my invite. And so I'm hearing that story over and over again, that it's really paved the way for other people to invite people to church. I mean, the stories have just rolled in. And it's hard to document because there's so many privacy restrictions with some of the
Sure.
We just don't want to lean into that, make videos and exploit it but for me to be able to hear these stories, it really validates what we've done. And the first time we baptized somebody that we paid off their medical debt, I'll give permission and the whole church to know it for sure.
Yeah, because that was the thing is there was a lot of folks in the community, as you're well aware, and they knew, hey, you go to Peavine, tell me about this.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to explain it, and I can't explain it as well as you did. But, and the first thing they're going, wait a minute, so 25,000, how could it be 5.7 million?
Yeah.
And it's like, listen, just think about it like this. And we explained it, that they're like, hey, it's just incredible. I've never heard anybody do something like that. Why don't more people do that, right? More organizations.
Sure, because what you don't have to do is pay off $5.7 million in debt. You don't have to. We asked for all of the debt available to them in 3 counties. Somebody could go to this group with $2,000 and say, how much medical debt could I pay off? And they'd go find it, or $500, and they'd go find debt and pay it all for people. And it'd be more people than you think it would be, because they're able to buy, for best we can tell,
Right.
Hospital identifies it as at-risk debt. That doesn't mean they've even missed a payment. Maybe they've been faithfully paying on it we don't know. It does not mean it's gone in arrears or anything like that. That's not what it means. The hospital's just tired of carrying the debt.
Sure.
And there's so many factors that go into that. And so they're able to buy it for pennies on the dollar. And so that's how 25,000 turns into 5.7 million. Now that doesn't make sense to us.
No, it was crazy. But I said, well, think about it. It's the end of the year.
Yeah.
So when do you want to write off?
Yes, that's exactly.
As a business, we want to write off everything
Yes.
we can right at the year's end. We look and see how much profit we have, and we have, okay, what do we need to do to position ourselves to pay the least amount of tax?
That's right.
And put the money to work for good things. And so, my wife, she's treasurer for Stocking Full of Love here in Catoosa County, and it's a nonprofit. So everybody at the end of the year is contributing money, right? And it is Christmas, but it's the fact that, hey, I want to give it to some place that'll do good in the community instead of writing a check to the government. And
Right.
where can I put that? So it made sense
Right.
that how that could happen with that little be that much, but it was just such a phenomenal
Well, who just knew
idea.
it was a thing?
No,
Who knew it was a
nobody
thing?
knew. Nobody knew.
No little God things were just fell in my lap. I wish I was smart enough to say I went out.
Yeah.
The God led me to some church members in my lap. I thought it was a scam, and next thing you know, that's the story.
And that's what a lot of people thought. It's like, if it sounds too good to be true, it is, right? And that's typically how we've always grew up. But this is one of those cases where no. And hey, the people that actually do that work and found a way to do that,
Yeah.
bless them.
Well,
I mean, that's incredible.
If I can understand, it's not a lot of it's more for profits that do it, and then they go collect the debt than it is not for profits. But like, to give you one example, I got the word through a church member that we paid off $15,000 in medical debt for one family. $15,000. Now that's not the average amount we paid off, but $15,000. So to think that $25,000 paid off debt for 4,280 people, and just one of those people was $15,000 worth of debt. That can be a crushing amount of debt for an individual or for
It
a
is.
household, for medical debt especially, because you got nothing in it but maybe health. Health's not nothing, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
You don't get a commodity or an asset for the medical debt. And so who knows how many times, like 5.7, it's easy to see how you got up to $5.7 million and it was all said and done.
Yeah, because if you're a family and your child or anyone in the family falls ill critically fast, you go to the emergency room. That's where you have to go, and you get the care you need to get taken care of. But for a lot of families, they don't have a budget for that payment all of a sudden. It just wasn't there.
No.
And so you're right. It's crushing. All of a sudden, it's $100 a month is all they can afford, and they're doing that. But that $100 a month is a make or break amount of money.
Yeah.
So to have a family that all of a sudden can get rid of that and kind of have that relief back into their family and their budgets and their finances, it's a godsend for sure.
For sure. That's how we viewed it too.
Yeah. So it's wonderful. The youth program. Holy smokes. We had our grandson. He's 16 now. He was 15 at the time. And so he came to us and he's like, I want to go to church with y'all. We're like, well, that'd be fantastic. So he goes, Nathan, youth pastor, takes him, wraps his arms around him, in the way that they do. But what he was so floored with is how many youth were there on a Wednesday night. I mean, it is such a upbeat and incredible atmosphere for the youth and what they do on Wednesdays and Sundays. And, next thing you know, he's getting baptized.
Yeah.
And that's the miracles that happen at Peavine. And it's so crazy to me because we'll come and we'll service and we'll start a service with what? Baptisms.
Yeah.
And, how many folks have come and been baptized is just, you get to watch it live. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. But that youth program is such an amazing program.
Yeah. They've got something special going on this year. If you look at church life, January through April is the largest months. January through Easter are the largest months in a church's life in the spring, typically. People back up in April, but it's never quite what it was a lot of times January through Easter. But for youth ministry, the calendar flips. It's the fall months that are bigger for youth ministry because the way sports fall, there's so many spring sports there. But they have had the best few months, even in 2025 in history. We're talking about on Wednesday nights averaging not quite, but close to 300 youth on Wednesday nights down there worshiping in that building. Our next year pastor Nathan does a fantastic job.
He does.
He's got a fantastic team. Like they're really pouring into those kids. And we hear stories of life change with teenagers just like we do adults, man. God's doing something in that ministry. And hey, we want to reach people with the gospel as early as what we can because as we know as adults, this world gets murkier and murkier the older you get. It gets more confusing. It gets more hurtful.
It does, yes.
And we think, let's get teenagers connected to Christ and God as early as what we can to give them the Holy Spirit in our heart and life, to give them the tools to deal with all that and get them into their Bible and get them in the Word of God and all that stuff. So, hey, we want them connected to God as early as what we can. And so our youth ministry right now, we're thankful to God what's going on there.
Yeah, it was incredible because he went to school and he got connected with another kid that goes to school with him, but he didn't have a relationship or know them, but they probably passed in the hall, but all of a sudden it was like, hey, this is an extension. And so he had another avenue to kind of, it was just amazing how that all worked. Mm-hmm. But when you pull up on a Wednesday night, if you've never been with your youth, and oh my goodness, it's amazing what goes on down there. Right. And,
well, you talk about it Wednesday night. Wow. Every room we have on the building is full on Wednesday nights with either adults, kids, or youth. Like every room that is available is full on Wednesday nights. And a third of that are the youth that are down there meeting. So it's phenomenal what's happening.
Yeah, it's just
they did something last year, Richard. They had T-shirts printed that said, "Can I pray with you?" I think, or "How let me pray with you," or something like that. And Nathan took them through a couple of weeks of like preaching and training how you pray with people. And so on the same day, you had over 200 kids that wore those T-shirts to school. And the teacher can't pray with the student,
right?
But a student can pray with the student as long as they want to. And we have all these photos of Peavine students with their arms around kids praying with students, all day long. And man, they didn't want anything out of it other than let me pray with you for whatever. And kids carry a lot of burdens nowadays.
Oh, they
do. So they really just wanted to say, hey, we're here to help. Whatever you need, let us know. And it's just one of those things that I think helps start the momentum for what we're seeing right now in youth ministry.
Wow. It's absolutely amazing what goes on down there. For folks that go, we know. But for folks that don't, if you're looking for a church home, I mean, listen, just please, just come and see for yourself. That's what I would tell anybody. It's just such a blessing to the community. There's so many things you do. You know, we talked about what you do with the medical debt, but every year we love to see you and taking the kids and go shopping for Christmas and what you do there. I mean, there's just so many things year round that happens at Peavine.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing to do is we take anywhere from 12 to 18 foster kids Christmas shopping at Walmart. And this year because of the church donation, we gave every kid $600 and said, there's a buggy, there's an adult, go have fun and let them shop for Christmas. And the first year we did it, it's been about 4 years ago. I stood at the register. I was doing everything that day. I'm kind of the I just float, I was helping girls. My wife and I were helping some girls shop until I realized I didn't need to be helping girls shop. So I went somewhere else, And so I hung out, saw what the boys were buying. And then I went in there and it takes forever to check out at Walmart. The manager's so nice to us. We go to Chattanooga Walmart, so we don't run into as many people as what we know. She was so excited about what we did this year. And so, but I stand at the register, I'm checking people out with tears in my eyes because they're buying food.
That's what I was going to, yes.
They're buying gifts for their mother, who she's the reason they're in foster care. But the heart still breaks for their mother, and they're buying gifts for their mother. And I saw that first buggy come out with food in it. And so I started saying to the kids, hey, go grab you some snacks, go over there and get you a Mountain Dew or whatever you want and grab some chips, because you can get all that right there at the register. And man, they started going to get that stuff. And I'll tell you what, I saw so many buy food. Every quarter we go to this foster care and we say, tell all your kids to make a list of snacks they want. We go buy all their snacks and we stock a snack pantry for them. So they have that little treat, having whatever snack they want available to them. So we've been doing that since we started this. And that's something we don't even talk about very much because we want to try to help those kids in a real rough situation. And that little thing breaks my heart every time we do it. My wife and I sit there and say, this is incredible. And we do that. We do so much. You know this, Richard, at Peavine. It's all the time. We're constantly saying, oh, by the way, church, you did this week. Oh, by the way, you did this. Oh, by the way, because when I ask for a certain amount of money, I always get more than I need. And we take the residual of that and we always pour it right back into the community. And we've been doing that since we started that when I came. And I think it was my second year. We did something called the 12 Days of Christmas, and where we did 12 different huge projects, including buying a teacher a car that needed a car and things like that. And church did all that. Church, it's a great, loving church that gives. It's one of those things, like you said a minute ago, unless we can talk about it, you need to experience it.
You do.
You need to experience it.
Yes, absolutely. And, one of the things, I was doing a local TV show the other morning, and the other gentleman with me, he actually goes to the 8 o'clock service. But Randy was sitting there and he was talking, and he's like, Pastor Joel had a sermon a little while back, and he was talking about doom scrolling on his phone, right?
Yep.
And so he's talking about your sermon, right? And he's like, I didn't think about it. He said, but I do that, right? You get on your phone, you get on Facebook, and it's just like you're doom scrolling. But when people are talking and regurgitating your sermon out to other people, that tells you the impact that you're having in the community.
There's nothing I love. I get, and I'm not a great preacher. I do the best I can, but I get texts from, parents who got videos of their teenagers talking about my sermon that morning, or they told somebody, man, there's no greater reward for a preacher than just to hear that weeks after you preach a sermon, people are still talking about it and applying it to their lives, which is what we want to happen. So
I love the honesty, by the way. You're not a great communicator. Listen, go watch Joel give a sermon. No. Joel, you're very effective, and you're a great communicator, and that's what makes it so well. And one of the things for me, little ADHD, my wife will reaffirm that, but I love how you've got the screen, and you'll have surveys. You'll have things where it breaks it up. Yeah. Like for somebody like me, you've got statistics, or sometimes you'll have a short video and those are the things that really make that sermon impactful. Or for somebody like me, it's memorable because sometimes if you're just up there and you're talking and you get some and they're monotone and the message is there and the message is great, but the delivery may not be but the way you deliver it and the way you use things to kind of accentuate it, it's just a great communication tool. And that's why they resonate with everybody. It's phenomenal what you do. And I know obviously it took you years to perfect that. And, like anything else, some folks are comfortable in front of an audience. Some folks aren't. Yeah. But
I'll tell you this, that's something I'm always refining. I've probably changed about 6 times, but now that you talk about my screen.
Yes.
When we put that thing up, and look, the way you construct a sermon, the way I do, my favorite thing to do, Richard, if I preach, is just teach the Bible. I'd love to just open my Bible, walk people through the Bible, no fluff, no wills, but you can't handle that. We don't digest. That's not the way we digest it. No, nor have we really ever digested information that way. There's a little bit of me that just love to be a bookworm and talk about this passage, all that stuff. Well, but I know ADHD, hey, come on in, the water's fine. I have a attention span of goldfish too. So, I know what we're talking about here.
Yes.
And I try to not have too much monologue, more than 4 or 5 minutes of monologue without a pattern interrupt or a hook or something to grab you an illustration. But when I put that television up there and I was able to visually show, instead of saying survey say,
right,
I can show you the survey and talk about it, to see people lock with that, because we're a screen generation.
Yeah,
right? We're screen. I got a notebook in front of me, but we're a screen generation, right? We're a screen generation. And so, hey, I can fight that, or I can just say, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Just let me step into the lane where you are and speak to you in the lane where you are, and that's the lane we're in. People gravitate towards screens, and hey, I love using it, man. I love using it. It's a good tool to help me preach the gospel and communicate and hold attention, all that. And so I've got one now that I can draw on while I preach, and I love that, that I can make a few bars on it. So thank you for the kind words. I'm just a dude who's trying to do his best. I'm just grabbing the Bible and trying to see what God says to me and pass it on. And I do have 30 years of experience into that, but I'm changing all the time. I'm not one of the guys that like, well, hey, this is what I was taught 30 years ago, so I'm going to do it. No, I'm constantly reinventing and over, morphing at least how I package the content to get the content out. And so the main thing is I want to preach the gospel, but I don't want to be boring preaching the gospel. I stick true to the word, but nothing's wrong with making it more understandable, more relatable week in, week out.
No, and it is. Listen, we're a visual medium. I mean, like this, we could listen to this podcast and it'd be fine, but visually seeing who it is, it is. It's way better. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I'll say for me, I love the defined lines of what Peavine stands for. Mm. There's places that'll kind of move the gospel kind of to where the times are at, you know what I mean? Because they want to be relevant. If this is in, we want to be into. And no, it's not that way. This is it. These are the lines, and you draw them perfectly, and we don't move. I mean, the gospel doesn't move, and we don't move. And that's what matters to me, and I think that's what resonates. Peavine's not trying to be in a trend. Peavine is Peavine, and the gospel is the gospel. And that's what I love about your sermons is, you just lay it out there. This is the way it is. There is no different way to interpret it to make it a little more palatable for certain people or certain things. I mean, this is who we are, and this is what we believe, and this is the scripture. And I think that's what's great.
Yeah, methods can change. The message never does. The message is always saying, and look, it's not my word, it's his. This is not thus saith Joel. This is thus saith the Lord. I don't have a right to, and we're seeing preachers do that now, man. It's very disturbing trend. Preachers are reading the culture and trying to make the Bible fit the culture, so how can we tweak these verses to make it okay so the world is okay? Well, here's what I would say. The world is never going to be okay with our message. You can try to make it as palatable as you want it to be. They're never going to be okay with it. And I've got to stand before God one day. So I'd rather have his approval than the fleeting world's approval. That's chasing something that's going to run off a cliff. So we're just going to stay true. It is what it is. We're not going to back down from it. And we're not going to be mean about it.
No,
if the Bible says that, I don't have a right to change it. It's not my book, it's his. So we're just going to lean into that and trust God that Bible says his word will not return void. And so we're just going to preach his word. And when it's hard, and it affects all of us when it's hard.
It does, but it's the right way. And that's what we appreciate is just, you tell it the way it is, and there you go. So, well, anything else we need to touch on today? I think this is a great introduction.
This has been fun.
This is a great introduction for anybody that's a member. They're going to enjoy this, kind of like a little overtime, right, with Pastor Joel. And for folks who don't attend Peavine and wanted to know a little more about it, hey, this is a great way to get an introductory. And I would, encourage anybody to
Peavine.org. If somebody wants to check us out, Peavine.org. And you can go there Sunday morning. We start broadcasting our service live at 9:30. So they can watch it 9:30 at 11. And then we rebroadcast it on the odd hours all day Sunday. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. You might be thinking, why do you broadcast at 11? We have about 24 people that watch at 11 o'clock every Sunday night. We don't know who they are, but they watch every Sunday night at 11 o'clock. So I love it. And so if you're looking for church on Easter, we'll have all our Easter schedule out soon. You'll be able to see that. We'll have a Thursday night service, a Saturday night service, and then 3 on Sunday. So you didn't ask for that plug about that.
But no, it needed to happen. It needed to. It's like with Christmas. I mean, the Christmas service was more times, and it was great for us because we could come earlier in the week, and it just so definitely.
Yeah.
It's a great time coming up. Easter is right around the corner, so it'd be great.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me. Love what you're doing here. Appreciate you and what you're doing. So it's been fun.
Thanks. Well, till next time, everybody, have a great week. Talk to you later.
be better than